Welcome to the latest episode of the SorareAndrews podcast. I am Andrew Laird. You can find me as Lairdinho on Sorare, joined as always by Andy Black, who you can find as Black on Sorare. Andy, there has been some excitement about this podcast, which is funny because I just thought everybody was excited every week that we come on. We're doing this a slightly different time. It's very early in the morning for you, pretty early for me, but we just thought today was such a monumental day that we needed to start early.
Monumental, huh?
What's that?
Monumental, huh?
I don't know. Is it? But I think the question that everybody wants to know is, how is your pool coming?
Well, my wife got a quote. It came in way too high. I looked at it and I was like, never going to happen. So, not looking good right now.
Are you able to build the pool, pay for the pool in ETH? Can you trade cards for the pool?
Those are both great options. I would totally be on board with those things. Unfortunately, I don't think that there's a pool guy, a pool boy in Missouri that's willing to put a pool in for Ether cards.
It's too bad you can't do like a big like PAL like 27,000 cards for.
Yeah, here's a bunch of limiteds.
Yeah.
Now let's swim.
Maybe some rookie cards. Let's swim. So thank you to everybody who has already joined us on the stream. We see a lot of the regulars here. Misaki beat Mike Baston to the chat today, but thank you everybody. We see Bullstar, Bob Flynn, Yosef, Sojiwa, Josh Forth. Thank you. Techers with the free Trip and B. I totally agree with that. Trip and I go back years though, so I'm just astonished that anytime whatever he says gets himself banned, although maybe he deserved it. Chani, good to have you here. Jimmer with his classic first comment despite being 27th. J-Hode joining us for the first time, so thank you for joining, J-Hode. Good to see you. And Michael Pennick as well. Howdy. So there was a lot of, it looked like anger this week about this situation. I don't actually want to go into it in terms of like, I'm not going through the history of the Blackpool stuff, and I don't think it's really necessary for this stream because it seems like everybody who's tuning in obviously knows all about it. An announcement came out today that the accounts associated would have been suspended pending this investigation. But you and I have talked about this a while, and I told you like I didn't want to talk about it, and then I talked about it with you for a lot. You were like, you seem like you want to talk about it.
Well, we weren't going to talk about it because we want to talk about it on here.
Right.
And then last night I had mentioned something, and then we got into a back and forth, and it spiraled into us talking about it.
Right. Like we had a very different view. I think we looked at it differently than a lot of other people. And there was a thought that I just didn't want to talk about it out loud. That's exactly how it came out. Like I'm in a few Discords.
Well, I think what's important too is that we don't talk about things like this beforehand and kind of our ideas meld together. I mean, I think it's important for us to have our own perspectives on this.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And so I'm in a few different Discords, and I'm in Discords with a few people who are in chat right now. So they have kind of heard my opinions, and I like to pretend that Discords are not like totally public. There is obviously a trust with all these people that you've somewhat met on the internet that what you say is kind of private, and not to say that I was saying anything that I wouldn't have said here, because I probably will say it in the next, however many minutes. But it's just like, there was obvious like outrage about the situation. And I think when people get really outraged about certain things, they start to lose perspective of what they're actually asking for. Yeah. And so I think a lot of that came down, and the announcement today was like universally applauded, which I've like never seen before on Sorare. Except, in fact, we got an announcement last week that they're going to run contests that you could win unique cards with limiteds. And like some of the response was like, but you can't fix D2. And it's like, can we please have some perspective here? But anyway, so I think the problem that I had with a lot of the responses to this whole situation is people were looking for these like one-off punishments, meaning one-time punishments for rules or for almost like unwritten rules that were broken.
Rules that were explained very poorly.
Right. And I think that, and thankfully part of the announcement today is that they're going to review their terms, and Sorare is going to review their terms.
I think that's probably the most critical part that people may not be happy. Like, everybody's happy about the blood in the streets, the punishment. Most important thing to me out of that announcement is they are updating their terms of services, hopefully to be a lot more specific.
Yes.
Terms of services should be specific. And if you read through them, they're very generalized. And I get it for there's a reason for that, but they need to be more specific.
Absolutely. And I think we lost sight of the difference between doing something that was wrong and doing something that was, I don't want to call it unlawful because these aren't laws, but like against the rules. And so if you skirt rules, like literally the definition of skirting rules is that you're not breaking them. But that doesn't mean they're right. And I think that's kind of the problem that everybody had, because they were like, what they did was not right. But then you have to be like, all right, well, what rule did they break?
Yeah.
And then there's this kind of like, well, it was sort of this multi-accounting rule or this questionable trades. And it's like, all right, well, like, how did they break it? And there was like a difficulty explaining how they did it. And as soon as you like struggle to be like, this is what they broke, you're leaving yourself open to like, well, they didn't break the rule then. And now we're asking Sorare to punish accounts that didn't break any rules. And like that's where I started to like have a problem with like the responses is
Sure.
And that's not to say they didn't break any rules, because
Right.
I think they did.
Yeah.
Like ultimately they ended up breaking rules, and I think that's why they got suspended. But the calls for punishments with no direct citation of a rule that was broken is what bothered me, because not to say that they're going to be like, all right, well then you're going to get suspended, but like,
Well,
it opens up the possibility that at any point Sorare can be like, we don't like what you did,
yeah,
so you're out.
I certainly think the renaming the account and transferring ownership of it broke rules. So I think
Yes.
that's one specific area you can definitely say rules were broken. People are talking about multi-accounting. I would love to address that. How do you define multi-accounting? Because people are like, Giacomo in chat just said, sorry, but I can't remember any single video game allowing multi-accounting despite TNC. I mean, define multi-accounting. We have non-KYC accounts, but I tend to think the three people in question here are human beings. They're separate people. They're not the same person with multiple accounts. I think it's really, really difficult, and you have to identify what your definition of that is, because I think that just because they're funded by the same group, I don't think that that's multi-counting.
So this is where
The collusion of sharing cards, that's a different thing. That's not multi-accounting, that's collusion.
right. Right. And so that's why we focused a lot on what needed to be changed for the term in the term TNCs,
Sure.
terms
Yeah.
and conditions of the game. Because if those are not well defined, then they're easy to skirt. And so I think fundamentally what people saw was like one really good account distributed, like fundamentally one really good account distributed their best cards to two other accounts. Like That's what happened. Let's call it, I don't even want to call it 3 accounts because, like, let's just say it was AJ's account and it went into the other 2 Blackpool accounts. Like, that's not breaking any rule.
I see people in chat talking about pooling of cards. Have you guys ever loaned anyone? Because I've seen all of you people loan cards to a
So,
friend. Is that pooling? Is that
so there's, I was going to get there too, but so there's 2 things actually, and one of which I brought up to you yesterday. So, like, there's pooling, there's collusion, and then there's multi-accounting. I think those are like the 3 things that people were concerned about.
yeah?
So I asked you last night, and I was like, we were in a conversation with somebody else, and I said, if I tell you that I want a card and it's up for auction, and I'm bidding for it, and you decide, and I ask you, and I'm like, I tell you, like, I want this card,
Yeah.
and you choose to not bid on it, is that collusion? Like, it is, right?
I mean,
like,
in a very minor way, yes.
like theoretically, we are colluding that I am going to be the one who gets this card of the 2 of us.
Yeah.
And, like, that's a conversation that people have all the time, and it happens all the time.
Yeah.
And I think there's people who are like, well, that's a little different. It's like, well, how is that different? Like, so anyway, so there's that. So the other thing is this whole, like, each account needs to be managed by one person. And there's a difference of opinion amongst a lot of the community that having one person fund multiple accounts is different than one person running multiple accounts. And so the problem is, this situation was like, there's a single pool of money and 3 individuals running the accounts, and according to the terms, like, that was okay. And everyone's like, well, the same person, the same thing,
Yeah.
owns it all. And it's like, well, that's not against the rule yet. Like, if it was one entity running the 3 accounts, that's different. And or one person, excuse me. If there's one human running the 3 accounts, that's different than one entity having 3 people run the accounts. And then they go back to, like, oh, well, that's what happened with Karapu, however you say it. And so
That was very, very different, because that was just that one that one was interesting, because I think he got pretty far down the line where he realized, like, he bought all these cards, he bought tons and tons of uniques, and he realized, hey, I could just, have multiple entries and punish everyone. And he started to split off, and I think that they even KYC'd, or maybe even just did some kind of level of identity verification on his buddies, but it was still deemed, like, I guess, pooling cards, or it broke one of those infractions.
Okay, that's fair. I'm trying to catch up on the chat because obviously people
luck.
are very, very fired up about this. So they said they tactically split AJ's account for SO5 benefit. That's breaking rules. So regardless of how they got AJ's account, obviously it seems like they owned it. Like, what?
So
if you and I,
real quick, I think that is kind of important. Does Blackpool own those 3 accounts?
why does it matter?
It matters because that would be one entity that owns all of the cards.
But the rule isn't about owning the cards. It's about controlling the account, isn't it?
Possibly, but I still think it's bad.
Agreed. Absolutely agree with you. Like, and
I agree with a lot of the people in chat that are like, well, it's a bad rule. Well, I agree. And it needs to be updated, but it's not updated. So, I mean, it puts everyone in a weird situation, because everyone's competitive, and Blackpool's competitive. They're gonna go as hard as they can to generate funds for their pool or whatever the hell that they have going on there. And it's really important that the rules are clear and make sense and punishable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So sorry. So Trip and B. says in principle, there's a huge difference between a loan to help out a small player who'd struggle to play without that loan versus two of the top accounts loaning back and forth. Why? Like the difference is the level of the card, but like aren't loans just loans? Like why are we there's no rule against loaning. Like the XP hit when you transfer cards, which is another part of this wonderful story. But the XP hit is what basically obviously it doesn't prohibit loaning, but like it's a detriment to loaning cards. But there's no limit on what cards you can loan. Like if I loan you a card, that nobody, there's no rule that says I can't loan you a card. And so I'm not saying that this is loaning, but like
maybe it is. Maybe this is a season-long loan.
Well, sure. But I think that there were just a lot of things that a lot of managers do on a significantly smaller scale that is similar to what part of this situation includes. And so people saying like, you shouldn't be able to do this. And it's like, well, if they can't do this, then you shouldn't be able to do it either. Like rules are set for everybody. Like we can't have like exclusions. And you can argue that that this situation is coming about because people were skirting rules and it's been addressed. But like I know that there are situations where people are like, I'll loan you this card, or people ask for it. I need a card for this week, and if somebody can help me out, I'll give you 20% of what I win.
Yeah, see it all the time.
How is this? I mean, obviously,
this is definitely different.
This is definitely different because it's one entity owning. But now I have cards. Like if I loan out somebody's card or my card to somebody else, and I'm like, I get 20% or 25% of whatever you win. Now I have two entries in the same contest.
Yeah.
Am I multi-accounting? Because I'm benefiting from this like
yeah, I mean, a little bit, 20%'s worth.
Right. Like as long as multi is more than one. If it's 1.2, 1.25, like I just think so. If everyone's like they shouldn't be able to pass their cards back and forth, like that was one of the and I appreciate that there were some absurd suggestions in the general Discord before the announcement came back of like what the punishment is, and I do think that some people thought that these absurd punishments were like completely reasonable, and I apologize. In fact, I apologize for using the word absurd because people did think that these were like legitimate suggestions.
Yeah.
But like they should never be allowed to trade with each other ever again. Like basically Max and you never walk alone. Like, what do you say to that?
I mean, that's a tough one. I think my big problem with this is, my cards, my assets, I should be able to do whatever I want with them. Own your game. Isn't that why we're here? So, I think that there's part of it that says, I should be able to transfer them in whatever manner I want. That said, I mean, we are competing. We are playing a game. That game should have rules. I think that the rules, I think it all comes down to like my whole point with whatever I'm going to say is the rules need to be updated. Update the rules, and then let's make them very specific, and then let's follow the rules. And then, if people break them from there, then you have this rule that's very specific that you can say you broke this rule, and here's the punishment. And punishments should be clear as well.
Right.
It's all just kind of a make it up as we go scenario right now.
Mm-hmm.
And
it feels it.
That's not great.
Well,
not great.
And they were intentionally vague, I believe is the term that I saw about the terms and conditions. And
I think we're past the point of where it needs to be intentionally vague, and we need to just spell out the rule, and people need to abide by it.
So Giacomo brings up this question, which I think we all need to think about, but I'm going to ask you since I read it first. Do you think exploiting a bad rule is the same as cheating?
Oh, is this like a morality question?
Yes. Well, honestly, I think a lot of this comes down to that.
So if I'm sitting in front of a judge, I'm not guilty. But if I'm sitting down in front of like my parents, they're gonna be like, guilty.
No, I think
Man, I need a beer. It's like 7 a.m. and I need a beer right now.
I think the morality plays. We got into this way more than I thought we would. I think morality plays a big part of it because people saw what they saw and they were like, that is wrong. And it's like, well, what rule did they break? It doesn't matter. It's just wrong. They're cheating. It's like, okay, what rule
I
did they
hate
break?
them.
Right. I mean, there was some vitriol there.
For sure.
And I feel like people are getting upset that we're not angrier and that now we're like justifying what they did. And I think the problem is just that, and I said at the beginning, like, I think we're looking at this very differently than a lot of people were. And that
I think my opinion over the whole thing is I'm less mad at Blackpool and more mad at Sorare for not having better terms of service, better game rules, better just rules overall that either explain this or have punishments. Let's have clearly defined TOS.
Yeah. No, I think that's absolutely reasonable. And I just think there's a problem when people want punishments for things that they're also doing, but they don't think that they're doing it because it's just on a much smaller scale.
Yeah.
And I think somebody wrote in chat, like, it's different if you rob a bank versus if you steal a candy bar from a store. Like, the punishment's different. And I agree with that. I mean, I agree with that.
Yeah.
I think you should be punished more for robbing a bank than for stealing.
They're totally different crimes. So, like, I don't know why we would.
Larceny, isn't it? I am not a lawyer here, but
it's hard to. It's going to be hard to rob a bank without a gun.
That's true. That's true. And you don't usually need a gun to rob to steal a candy bar.
Yeah.
So I think that I think the response was correct. I think the initial response that they were suspended is like, this is absurd because this midweek that we have is terrible. And everyone's like, of course they suspend them for a midweek when there are no matches. But the announcement didn't say anything about a time frame.
The rewards that they won from last week, are those wiped?
Yes.
Okay. What about people that would have finished in the prizes if
I would assume that everybody moves up. Like, I checked the standings and the accounts I was looking for were nowhere to be found. So maybe you moved up?
On Sorare data or on Sorare?
I checked on Sorare because I assume we would have to re-import all the lineups.
I think that's going to get me a card, by the way.
There we go. No wonder you wanted them out.
I love this announcement. Great announcement.
Yeah.
Big
fan. You want to go back to all those Christmas time contests too, where you had your West Ham stack and Mark had his Liverpool stack, and you want those thrown out too.
Right. Yeah.
I get it.
Yeah. Let's retroactively, punish.
Sure. Yeah. Oh man, there was a comment here from Luis that I lost in the chat. It says the difference is that the way the prize structures are built, collusion is wrong, but when the prize probability is low, it's not as important as when the probability of winning goes to 50%. Which I guess that just goes back to the bank and chocolate bar and candy bar example. That, like, it's okay for you and I to collude because we're just competing in D4. At least I am. But if we're going up as D1, then maybe we shouldn't.
Yeah. I don't know that I agree with that, but
I just think
I'm making sure I'm winning a card over here.
I think literally the most important thing that comes out of this is what the new terms and conditions are for this game. And I think the biggest thing that they have to address is, does multi-accounting reflect where the money comes from or who's running the account? or both, which is fine.
I think something really important that is it's gotta be discussed with this conversation is KYC. Do you think every account that competes in SO5 should have to complete some level of KYC? Which, to those that may not know what that is, it's know your customer, and it's some form of like identity verification. Show your license, driver's license or passport or something to identify who you are.
But that really is just showing that you run the account, right?
It doesn't even really show that you run the account. It shows that you're
that's true too. You're right.
It says, I am not a bot.
Yeah. Like, so, yeah, let me skip. Sorry, the comment in chat just like totally threw me off. So Vespasian says, the easy rule is every trade should be fair within certain tolerance of market value to be able to compete in SO5. If you want to sell your card for magic beans, fine, but don't use it in SO5. Respectfully, I think that is a horrible idea. Like, I think if the biggest thing of this, of Sorare and of NFTs, is that we own these things and we can do whatever we want with them, I don't want anybody to tell me what I can and can't do with it. And I think that's part of the issue with this whole Blackpool thing, is like, we don't know what AJ got for all of his cards, but like, not that it shouldn't matter, but it shouldn't matter.
I gave cards away to friends on Christmas.
That's fun.
And I've had friends that I've sold cards to at like extreme discounts, because it's like, root for the same guy that I'm rooting for, and sell them at a, whatever % discount. Is that not okay? Lock me up.
I think
and so. Then loans are the same thing. Loans, it's a trade for zero.
Right. So Josh was saying, isn't there a rule that says you can't transfer cards to one another for absurdly different values? Because they did a rare Bruno for a super rare Bruno and the one of 100. Or have I made this up? I assume you made it up, because there shouldn't be a rule for that. If I want to give somebody my best cards, like, why should Sorare be in a position to stop me from giving something that I own to somebody else, regardless of what it's for? Like, I think people start to lose the whole, like, oh, we love these NFTs because we own them. I can do whatever I want with them. Sorare stops existing. I still own all my cards. But then we have an entity that's like, you can't actually give that card to somebody else.
That's why rules are important. What is the rule?
There is none yet.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the KYC thing, to go back to that because you asked me that, like, I'm totally in that position of like, filling out a KYC that changes nothing for me. So yeah, like, sure, I'll do it. Like, I don't care. I got nothing to hide.
I think that the one thing that it might it might deter bots if those exist, and it also might prevent people from just like, oh yeah, my dog or my brother or whatever. I think it's important there, and I think like long term, I think it's just it's going to happen, and like, might as well, get it taken care of now, introduce it now, before it does become problematic and people don't want to do it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think the other one that just popped out, because everyone is saying like, you can trade your cards all you want, but like, Sorare controls SO5.
Yeah,
like, I get that, but like, and everybody is like kind of joking around about these all like, oh, offsite transaction to get the card, blah blah blah. But like, that can happen. Like, if I trade a CryptoPunk for Mbappe unique, why are you telling me that I now can't play that in SO5?
Yeah, portability is supposedly what, like, something that's important here, something that we care about.
Mm-hmm.
Being able to, take it out of this game and put it into this game or this project.
Right. Yeah. No, I think that's. I just think that every like solution is not even a solution, but every like comeback that everyone's like, well, they shouldn't be able to do this, and it's like, well, what if like a friend of mine needs a card and they just don't have ETH on the platform, and I send them the card and then they send me ETH off site later, and it's like, well, now you can't use that in SO5 because you didn't transfer that through the ETH on the game. Well, that sucks.
Yeah.
I just don't think that. I don't think the solutions that are coming out are reasonable solutions that apply to everyone. And I think that's the hardest thing that Sorare, or at least their legal team, need to deal with. That like the terms of your game need to apply to everyone, and
Yeah.
that's people with 300 ETH galleries or zero point 0.3 ETH galleries. Like they need to apply, and they shouldn't be able to. There shouldn't be rules for the unique division that are different than limited.
Yeah. Well, I see people keep sharing. Josh shared what the rule is, and I just think that they're using non-specific terminology. Significant percentage. What is that? That doesn't really mean anything. We need specifics.
Right. And then when it's 60%, and then you have a transaction at 59, everyone's like, oh, they're skirting the rule.
Yeah.
Like, well, that's why the rules need to be set.
Yeah.
So Axe is bringing up that the cannibalization of AJ's account breaks the fair play policy. I guess. I don't know. Like.
What do you mean the cannibalization of his account?
That
Like
they took his best cards.
Oh.
Like I think.
What if they would have taken his worst cards?
Ask Hybe.
Are we okay with that? Oh, that's Hybe. Are we okay with? Okay, that's. Are we okay with Hybe taking the worst cards?
I think
the answer is always going to be no when
yeah
when we ask this to chat.
Yeah, like I'm still like catching up. My gosh, this chat is hot today. I think if you and I bought a gallery, or let's say you, me, and someone
you
else.
own Blackpool token, right?
What's that?
You own some Blackpool token, right?
I do.
So what if you were to buy someone's gallery and pay them off site with Blackpool token? Is that where you're going with this?
I would love to do that. I have some sort of Blackpool NFT also.
Yeah. Well, you won like a cup or something, right?
No. I beat Mark in the Blackpool Cup.
Yeah. So it is important that we disclose this because
you're absolutely right. My God, we're 33 minutes in and I haven't disclosed that I'm a Blackpool token holder and I own I don't even remember what it was. It's like a picture.
It's significant. Since we're talking in specifics from the rules, it's a significant portion of your wealth. Am I correct?
Like, well, I don't even know what it's worth at this point. 0. It is not. It's so the Blackpool tokens that I have were what they airdropped to everybody who had been on Sorare since whatever date. So I think it was like $20 worth. It's probably worth 12 now. I don't know.
I love that I awkwardly brought this up. Make you feel
just
like
throwing this whole podcast. It's a sham. I actually joined Blackpool. That was actually the announcement today. Andy and I are going to Blackpool.
Yes.
What's that?
Big announcement. We're both joining.
Yeah, we're both. Yeah. Sorry, guys. No. So the example I was going to use is if somebody changes their Sorare name to like whatever, selling my gallery.
Yeah.
And you, me, and someone else are like, let's go buy that gallery. And we buy the gallery, and you and I take the best cards, and the third lackey takes the leftovers.
Because he contributed the least, right?
Right.
He only gave us like 6 Blackpool tokens when we had thousands.
We have thousands.
Yeah.
I wonder how many I have. I should look that up. So anyway, and the immediate response is like, well, this is different because Blackpool owned everything already.
Yeah.
And so the response then is like, these guys owned all these cards and now they're putting them in the 2 best accounts, which I guess falls into the collusion category or the multi-accounting one, but I'm not sure.
Techers, I like that. Techers, Laird, did you vote on any of this since you're a token holder?
No. No, I did not. Oh man, I'm so far behind in the chat. Sorry, guys. I have no experience in DAOs, so I don't really know how they should work. But I don't think
Well, most
Obviously,
of them
my
are
tokens are not
autonomous.
allowing me to vote on stuff
Yeah,
like this.
I think most of them are autonomous. This one, yeah. Uh, Trip and B set it pretty well there. Centralized manual ass organization. I think it's very. I think their distributions are all done manually. I think that they pick what gets voted on. I don't want to sit here and bash the way that it works, but I don't believe that they work like a typical DAO. I'll leave it at that.
Okay. Uh, I have no experience. From what I've heard from others, I believe that is the case as well. Um, so I think the other issue that comes up with this whole situation with the DAO is that nobody knows how it works, and so everyone's like, "Well, it's obvious that X, Y, and Z own these cards, or Blackpool owns everything, or they fund them," and it's like, not like nothing is obvious about this, and I assume that's on purpose. They seem to have had some extremely conflicting comments about them, because I know we had previously heard that each individual manager owned all their own cards, and then it became clear after this all happened that that was not the case.
I think that's a problem that they need to come out and address because, uh, yeah, I've heard that. I've heard that the pool owns the cards. I mean, Max's very first statement in chat ever about this whole, Blackpool creation was that he was going to be the only manager that ever participated. I mean, it's like they keep moving goalposts around, which they can say whatever they want. What's important is rules, what rules are being broken, but them as an organization should have some level of like PR where they they defend some of these things because it's just pissing people off. And like I said, certainly goalposts have been moved multiple times by them.
Right. Yeah, I can't figure out what the so let's say that each individual so let's say each individual manager owns all the cards, owns their own cards, but they own those cards because of funds that they got from the DAO. Is that multi-accounting?
No.
So there's a very big difference, we think, between the DAO giving them money and they themselves going out and buying cards with that money versus basically the DAO buying the cards directly.
Yeah, I think that there's a big difference there.
How do you differentiate it?
I don't
Like,
know. I don't know. How do you say who owns what? I don't know that they. I think that they've said both things on that, right?
right. Like, I think that's the problem is that we've said both each individual manager owns the cards. Well, I guess we've also heard that the DAO owns the card. Like, and I think that's actually something that needs to be like, I don't know if that's something that Sorare needs to address in the terms. Like, because Sorare doesn't decide who owns the cards, right? Like that.
Yeah. I mean, when it comes to funding, like I could have two brothers that play so rare, and my grandmother could give us all three of us money to, to play so rare. Is
Mhm.
that wrong? And I mean, how is that different than a DAO giving three of their members money to participate? And honestly, I feel like that's okay. The problem is when they say that all the cards are owned by the DAO, and then you know the DAO is making purchases on behalf of the managers.
Right. Well, they're making it on behalf of the DAO, right? Like, so
I don't know. I don't know. X. Do we know that that's the case, or did each manager pay? And I think that's part of the problem is there's no transparency with the way the cards were transferred amongst the members of Blackpool. So we don't know that like maybe You'll Never Walk Alone contributed X number of Blackpool token to AJ and bought X percent of his gallery, and Heidi contributed blah, and Max percented the, gave another percentage, and they all got the cards that they wanted based on those percentages. We don't know because it wasn't transparent.
Yeah, I think that's ultimately the issue, is that we don't know. We don't know. And frankly, I think you have to go into this thinking we'd never know, because
Yeah.
it's outside of Sorare. Theoretically, it's outside of Sorare. And so if the situation came that's what happened, they bought AJ's account with their own Blackpool tokens,
Yeah.
then
But again, we don't know that it was all paid for in Blackpool token, or
true.
maybe they've said that it was. I don't know. I can't
Tesla's.
keep track of
Who knows?
who's saying what, but again, not transparent. We'll never know.
Right. Like, I think, right, we just don't know. And I don't think we're ever going to know. And I'm not sure how Sorare, um I don't know how Sorare polices that.
Yeah.
Like, if it like if somebody, I'm like asking this to everybody in chat, but like if somebody came to you and they were like, "Oh, yeah, Sorare is cool, but like I don't have time for that. Can I just give you 50 ETH and you can just play Sorare and give me whatever percentage?" Like, is that, I mean, that's theoretically not multi-accounting, right? It's like one account, even though it's two people.
Yeah. I also can't imagine there's a ton of like big transactions going on with Blackpool token. So
Well, I believe the term was vested Blackpool tokens, so maybe they just don't exist yet.
okay.
I mean, whatever it is, it was obviously good enough for AJ to take.
Yeah.
And so, like, it doesn't matter what we think, if it's worth it or not. Like, it's not our transaction. Like, it doesn't matter
Yeah.
what we think.
Yeah.
We can think it's dumb or sketchy, but like, it doesn't matter. Like, if I wanted to trade, if I had a gallery worth $250,000 and I want to trade it for a Toyota Corolla, that's my business. And
Yeah.
like, you can call me dumb for it, but if that's what I want to do, that's what I want to do. But so I just,
Yeah, I think
I
we're
mean, it all
getting
goes
too
back to
far
like,
into the nitty gritty of like I don't know. People in chat are saying like he was voted off. I don't know. I don't know. And honestly, like that part of it's not my business, and I don't care. I don't care if he was voted off or what.
like, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And like,
And we're just gonna sit here and speculate over
that it's
that.
all just speculation.
Yeah.
Um, so, but I think, like, fundamentally, what people need to do is like go back and look at their suggestions of punishment and just be like, if, like, whatever you were accusing them of, if you have done on like a much smaller scale, is that punishment applicable to you as well? And I think a lot of it, like, again, there's some really shady stuff that happened, and I think they're being punished for it, or at least they're being suspended for it, which is a punishment.
What do you think that? Do you have any opinions on what the possible punishment should be?
I think they're,
Or is this just total like damage control right now?
well, it's got to be both.
Yeah.
Like, they have every reason to damage control. The popular hopeful outcome that I've seen from a lot of people is that they just have to move to one account.
Yeah.
That it becomes a Blackpool account, and they play from that. And so basically they can't enter, obviously. So everyone's like, well, they build this gallery so that like they don't compete against each other. Which, I'll be honest, like, I don't pay attention to where everyone enters, but like, I would assume that Max and Mark both enter like Champion Europe D1, right? Maybe one of them has the significantly better cards. So, they optimize one of the lineups to be better than the other, but
Yeah.
I imagine they're both entering that.
Yeah.
But again, I don't know. Like, I'm just speaking completely unintelligently about that. So if I'm wrong, then that's cool.
One entity equals one set of SO5 entries. I keep seeing stuff like that in chat. I mean, like, I don't know. What do you mean by entity? Like source of income? If I
Okay.
work for
Yeah.
if I work for Visa, they pay me in dollars? Can only one person that works for Visa? I don't know. That's probably a terrible take, but I think that you have to be really careful with like saying one entity.
Well, I think Sorare need to define what that entity is.
Sure, but
Um,
a human being should be allowed to play the game.
right. Agreed. Humans should be allowed to play this game.
One human play the game, right?
Yeah. No, I think so. AXA confirmed that they do enter everything, but each has targeted areas, which
Yeah,
right. Only one of them had that one to
but
one
they're
to
not
one.
colluding.
Um, right. That's not including because they compete against each
But
other.
again, it's like that what we talked about earlier, where it's like me and you not bidding on a car, or me not bidding on a card that I see you going after. Like we all do it. We all do
Right.
stuff like that. Someone
Yes.
messaged me the other day. I bid on a card, and they're like, "Hey, I let that one go. I saw you bidding on it." I'm like, "Hey, man, thanks. That was nice of you."
Love this community.
Yeah, is it community or is it collusion?
I mean, I just
No, your
obviously.
cat can't have an account.
Well, you're right.
That's
No,
why I
no
want
cat account.
KYC. KYC everyone. No cats. No
Um,
dogs.
right. AXA said bidding on a card is different because there's no guarantee you still get it, but like entering collusion on lineups doesn't guarantee that you win.
Yeah.
Um, I think people also overestimated how much the cards move between accounts because they're like they've been doing this for years. But like if they were really optimizing, they would just do it every week, right? Like matchups wise, like their XPs would be zero because they're just moving in and out every week. So obviously they don't do that, but
That's a spicy
they
question. Should Karupu be allowed his other accounts back? Well, they technically weren't Karupu's accounts. But sure, those accounts should be allowed to exist. But I assume if he tried to transfer cards back to them, they would break some fairness regulations or whatever. They'd be a significant amount over the value of the gallery, so
right.
the transfers probably wouldn't happen.
Yeah, I think, and I'm based on a lot of the comments, I'm guessing there's not many lawyers in the chat, but I think this issue of like one entity is one set of SO5 lineups, like the whatever this entity is, are you defining that as the entity that theoretically owns the cards, or are they just investing cards? Like, what happens if Andy gives me 50 ETH for my car? And we say like, oh no, Andy owns my car now. And I buy all these new Sorare cards with this 50 ETH that I have. And all of a sudden I'm like, hey, thanks for that. I'll give you 10% from my winnings. Like, are we multi-accounting now? Like he doesn't own the cards, I own them. He owns my car.
I'm
Like I
just
just
leasing it, okay? It's just a lease.
well, that's what it is. Well, let's say it is. Like I don't I don't think there's like I think the biggest problem is that a lot of the ownership stuff in terms of where money comes from is outside of Sorare and they can't possibly police that themselves.
Yeah.
And so where everybody gets their money is almost like not even a concern for Sorare. But everybody just is now saying like, well, obviously Blackpool owned all the cards. Well, I take that back. The only reason why we think Blackpool owns all the cards is because somebody said, like, didn't Max say it? Like, oh, actually, the DAO owns the cards. Well, that's different than the DAO giving money to somebody else to buy cards. So like,
I think that they probably need to address that, and I'm sure that they are going to they're going to have to address very specific things to Sorare at this point if they want to continue competing in SO5 competitions.
yeah, like Axa, I see your comment here. This is that's where the issue lies with AJ's cards going to other Blackpool members, and so that's like 100% an issue if the DAO owns all the cards, because that in itself is fundamentally multi-accounting because like it's one owner of all of these cards. The problem is that like we don't know, and frankly, like I don't know how we know who owns these cards. Like we know who runs the account, and we see that account is the one that's
Yeah.
bidding on cards and whatnot. And I think not that Sorare shouldn't try to figure it out, but like I think it's just really difficult in this situation to say like who owns what, because Sorare is not privy to how you get your money.
How'd you like to be the tax guy for like Blackpool or any of the owners of the participants in Blackpool?
Surely they're established somewhere that doesn't have taxes at all. But so yeah, like I think that's ultimately the problem, is that when we come up with this whole like one entity should have one account, we need to be very cognizant that it's almost impossible to, like, Sorare doesn't know where my money came from to buy my cards, but like I don't have a 500 ETH or whatever they have. I don't have a 500 ETH gallery, that, so it doesn't matter. But
Yeah.
like if somebody else is funding me and they're funding somebody else, like how does Sorare police that? I don't know.
Do you win anything this game week?
No. Oh, I take that back. I won 3 tier 3s. I had just a horrible DNP week. But maybe I moved up. Oh wait, I'm not. Maybe I moved up.
Oh yeah, could be two or three spots up, right?
Yeah, I didn't. It didn't help.
I had a happy accident where Champion Europe, there were a couple of Blackpool owners that finished ahead of me, and I was one out of the cards. Lucky me, right?
Thank goodness they just added you. Whew.
The only issue is it's going to be a tier 3 super rare where,
yeah,
could be DNP Central, but that's okay.
Yeah,
I like winning stuff. Winning cards
is fun. I would like to win Jimmer's tier 3s.
Yeah,
I like his tier 3s. So somebody said it can't. Oh man, I lost it now. It can't be about ownership of the cards. The issues within the SO5 game.
Yeah, we've kind of established that like those are separate things. Like own your game. You can move your cards around however you want, but there should be rules around SO5 as well that prevent either collusion or people doing bad things.
Right. Yeah, I think as long as somebody was saying like Max confirmed the DAO owns the cards, and if that's the case, then surely that's multi-accounting.
Surely that's what?
Multi-accounting.
Yeah, that's probably bad. If Blackpool owns all of the cards, that's very bad.
Does it matter if it's all?
Yeah, I guess not. Maybe we'll get a new account called Blackpool, and they'll play with the cards that they bought from AJ.
So, so the way that I was looking at it was, if Blackpool owned all the cards, then yeah, there should be one account. The problem is that these guys owned a ton of cards before Blackpool formed, and so now you're like, all right, well,
it's a complete mess.
It's a complete mess. But so they're like, all right, well, the cards that they owned that won rewards are theirs, but like we've learned that the rewards actually go to Blackpool now. So now if they
do they?
If they win subsequent rewards with rewards that they've won, this classic snowball, then who owns those? And it's like, I don't know. I don't know what to even say at this point anymore.
Someone I think posted something pretty good. Let me scroll up real quick. Arno, two things need to come out of this, and I think I'm pretty much on the same page as you, Arno. We need to update the TOS. We need to update the rules. Get rid of the vagueness, insert more specifics. And I don't know about the spirit of the game per se. I don't know that like you can really do anything about that, like from a rules perspective. But like I do agree with you. Like we needed to develop and foster a culture of fairness. Like, yeah, I don't know how we do that. I don't have the answer for that. But like generally, I agree with you.
Do you think it's more important to get that stuff sorted or the rewards?
I think TOS is like the most important thing right now, just because it's like now the hot topic. This right now is the hot topic,
Right.
whether we like it or not. I think it's like very, I don't know. I don't want to say it's uninteresting. It's definitely interesting, but it's just like I would prefer this not to be interesting. I would prefer something like rewards discussion to be interesting, or like front and center. That affects us users more. I feel like improving the rewards and making that system better. But we're at a point now where they just need to address this, update the rules, be very specific, and we move forward.
Yep. I think that's all that we really should get out of this is just very specific rules. Somebody was posted like 25 times in chat that like basically if they don't make this clear, or if like the however Blackpool is set up is okay, like what stops a bottle for opening up 10 accounts and just buying everybody else out and competing with 10 accounts? And I agree. Like I think,
well, what stops a battle boar from opening 10 accounts, funding them off platform, and letting his sister compete? And is that wrong? Should if a bottle boar were to give his sister 10 grand to play SO5, is that okay?
I think everybody in chat should think if a bottle boar went to you and was like, I want to give you 10 ETH to play, but you give me 20% of what you win.
Is that where it becomes a problem when you're kicking back percentage of winnings?
I would assume so, because that's technically like
that's the part that's multi-accounting.
Right, because they're benefiting from your account.
Yeah.
I mean, if somebody wants to come in and just give me 10 ETH and walk away, hey, I'll probably take it.
Oh man.
Yeah, no, I think
you're right. We should totally.
You're right.
Like that's like kind of wrong of us to even.
You're right, Nanzo. You're right.
We should associate his name with it.
Or clearly can compete.
Yeah.
Apologies to a bottle war for bringing you in on this. So, yeah, I think we just solved it.
Case so is Blackpool not benefiting from Heidi's account? I mean, not yet.
So Axe is saying as long as he doesn't own the cards and is only taking a portion of the winnings, that's fine. He can't consume the cards for free if you then wanted to leave the game. Why not? Like, what if I wanted to just give him the cards back for free? Hey, you gave me all this money. I bought all these cards. I'm leaving now. You can have them. Why is that bad? Or what's wrong with that?
Yeah. Jihad. Sorare needs to focus on licenses, app/desktop experience, terms and services, rewards, SO5 simple and consistent. Yeah, love it. Agree.
But like Axe is saying like that's multi-accounting now. But like, fundamentally, how do you stop that? I don't get it. If they just own, like, I think that's ultimately the problem I have with every suggestion, is because I feel like every time I'm like, well, what about this? And there's just too many of those. And thankfully, I mean, I'm not a lawyer, so I can't I don't know what any legalese is to figure out how to close that all off. But
so what do you think? What do you think the whole resolution of all this is going to be?
I was asking that previously. Like, I think the realistic. I think the realistic outcomes that make, I think the only realistic outcome that everybody else in the community is okay with is if they play under one account. And that's it.
What if they tell Heidi he can't join, and then Max and You'll Never Walk Alone continue playing?
So I think the problem is that you still have the issue that that the DAO owns these cards and they have two managers running them.
And they brought all those cards back in from AJ. Is that the problem? That
I think Like,
I can almost guarantee you that like the resolution that they're going to want is for all three of those managers to be able to continue participating in some way. Like that will be Blackpool's
of course, as it
goal.
should be. Yeah.
Yeah, they all want to continue participating. Whether and I don't know whether I don't know the specifics of the DAO or the way that works, but they're not going to want
Nobody
to.
does.
Like, but let's say they have to disassociate in some way. Like, would that be okay?
Right. So that's what I thought. So I thought that the two likeliest outcomes are what they either play under one account or they
Yeah.
play under three and they're not associated with the DAO anymore.
Yeah, like the DAO gets broken up.
Well, the
Like,
DAO doesn't have to be broke. They just have to
right,
leave.
right, right. Because Blackpool still has its Axie.
Right. They got a whole bunch of
They
whatever.
just leave.
Right. So I think the biggest issue there is that we would never know if they actually left.
Yeah.
Like we didn't know that the DAO owned the cards until they told us.
Yeah.
And everyone's like, well, they told us this, so it must be true, even though they've told us other things.
But we still don't know. They can tell us whatever the hell they want to tell us.
Right. So I think that there is a possible outcome that all three play again and say that they own the cards. We have traded in our Blackpool tokens for all of these cards now. So we just own the cards. And they sell rewards and buy back Blackpool tokens. So they still actually own
I would not like to be a Blackpool token holder right now because I don't like how does any of that function?
It's not our concern.
Yeah. Well, it's your concern.
You're right. You're right. Very concerned. I think the fairest resolution, at least I have in no way think I'm speaking for everyone here, but I think the popular hopeful resolution is they play under one account. And if they do have to do that, that's one account that's sitting on a lot of cards that are not being used. Oh, like a lot of elite cards. The problem is that it's in their best interest to hold those cards still because they wouldn't want anyone else to have them, right? Like they become an extremely illiquid gallery if they want to like continue SO5 dominance.
I think if that was the punishment, though, there would be a lot of emotion, and they would probably be pretty angry with that ruling, and
as any of us would if we
would
were
likely see sell off based on that.
You think they would sell off?
Maybe not the whole thing, but pieces, yeah, for sure.
But theoretically,
putting myself in their shoes, I would be very upset with that ruling.
Oh, absolutely. And the more they're upset about it, the happier everyone else is.
For sure.
Like,
for sure.
Realistically. But it just seems like in terms of like competitiveness, you would want to keep those cards. I mean, they have the best cards on the platform. And like, why would you sell the best cards on the platform to people who are then going to compete against you?
I guess if they're going to give you 100 ETH.
Is that enough? Like realistic? Like, I guess.
Yeah, it depends on the card, I guess.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, I think Axis just keeps going back to the fact that it feels like Max and Mark just took AJ's best cards for nothing. And
I think
it looks like that, but we don't know.
Yeah, Sorare should get the receipts.
Here, I can write one down for you. Yeah, I just think everybody needs to really think about like what one account for one entity actually means, because you could also just create multiple entities. Oh, no. My cards are owned by Blackpool.
Blackpool 3.
Yeah. Yes.
Exactly. And they have their own chunk of money associated with them.
Yeah. You just have to make it so the accounting bill is so high that it's just not worth multi-accounting. Is that the key? Multi-accounting, yeah. Not to be
Yeah.
confused with accounting of, yeah, I don't know.
What about multi-entry? No, I won't go there.
Well, you used to have it, right?
Like a long time ago, like
Yeah.
very first iteration of the game, you could enter multiple lineups per competition.
Yep. I think that is a horrible idea. Just for the record. I want no part of that.
Well, I mean, it takes away the benefits of multi-accounting, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's exactly what Axel just said. I don't think that is a solution to the multi-accounting issue, is allowing multiple entries. I don't think that there are enough prizes for it. Like,
I mean, there for like low end users would just get massacred.
Right.
You would never win a card.
Never. And I mean, man, we're just hitting all the hot topics today.
Yeah.
For those of you who want subs, look at the training lineups of the whales and tell me that that's what you want to compete against. And now multi-entry. No, you can't. Nope. No, thank you. Yeah. But I actually don't know if they have enough rewards for it anyway. Like for that many more entries. But that's also not my job to figure out. So did we solve this problem?
No. It's okay. Well, it's not our problem.
Not our job. Yeah.
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 I think the next like week will be interesting. Just what announcements come out of this, and whatever the team decides to do. But I think that it's a problem that's probably going to take longer than I said a week, but I think it's a problem that's going to take much longer than that. They mentioned lawyers, going over the terms of service. I don't know if you've ever had to run anything through like a lawyer, but I don't see this being something that gets handled in a timely fashion.
Right. Imagine how long you would take on something if somebody paid you by the hour. And you're just like, yep, still working.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a fun idea, Roland. Multiple entries, but only the highest score counts.
Yeah.
Still hate it, but good idea.
Well, I mean, that would have been that's the only way to do it. I mean, you couldn't win 6 prizes in one division, but again, like, still not great.
Mm-mm. Nope.
Even I like my big old gallery would probably just get crushed by, the real whales would just punish me.
Right. Yeah. I mean, yeah, we don't want that. The card hoarding would be absurd anyway.
Yeah.
Pedro says, I have one question. If instead of the trade they made, that would be for ETH, would that be different? So if they basically bought everything from AJ and ETH?
It's a great question.
Right. Like, do we care?
Like,
if we saw a 600 ETH transaction.
And everybody felt like it was fair.
Right. Well, I think Axa pointed out previously, like they've done deals with each other before, and they're all pretty much market value trades.
Yeah. And essentially what they're doing is they're optimizing.
Sure. You mean colluding?
Optimizing.
Optimizing, excuse me.
Yeah. If you and I were to do a trade, we would be optimizing, right? I need a forward. Mm-hmm. You need a defender. We've made a trade of players of fair value. We're both optimizing.
Right.
Not colluding, right?
Not colluding. Yeah. No, but exactly, Axel. That's not what we saw. So, but I think I would guess that they look at it, they meaning Blackpool, look at it like that they did effectively spend 600 ETH for the cards. They just paid it in fake money, even faker money. Apologies for the ETH.
Yeah. Manzo, we care if it's a wash trade. Yeah, we probably do. I don't know how you police it. I don't know how you prove that it was a wash trade.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep. Yeah. Okay. So 10 cards for 10 cards. Actually, every card has the same value according to Blackpool. I don't know.
I know that they have weird valuations. Like at some point they were running like their own charts and valuations, and I know they were saying that they were more accurate than Sorare data at some point. So that's gotta really be like a sword in the back, huh?
Hardly.
I think that they probably did have more accurate, unique pricing on their platform because they are a manual organization,
Right.
as we said, and they were able to manually set values on each of those unique cards while you guys are trying to use some level of automation.
Yep.
Big difference there, right?
Very big.
You guys also don't have to, only do 2 galleries. You guys have, an entire
3
platform.
galleries. 3.
Oh, 3 galleries. My bad. Entire platform to look after. So
it feels a little different, yeah. And yeah, I'm not going to go down that road.
You don't want to talk about how unique valuations on Sorare data are a little bit off?
I will say that what we show are not what we think something is worth. It's a reflection of what has previously happened on the open market.
Yeah. Unfortunately, there's just not enough liquidity and like trades and stuff on those cards to get accurate price valuations.
Yep. Valuing illiquid assets is not an automated process. That's all.
We should get Evaldo back on to talk about liquid assets.
Oof.
It's his favorite topic.
Literally his favorite topic. I don't think we have anything more to say about this, even though we could probably keep talking about it.
Apologies to everyone that we offended today.
Did we offend people?
No, I don't know.
If we did, if we did, I'd like to know how. So if you could reach out to me, I'd appreciate that, because I think we tried to
be civil.
Right. Well, I warned people before this that we weren't going to be the pitchfork, like they have to be, let's burn everything to the ground.
I think it's a tough topic to have like a clear, like open-minded discussion over. It affects a lot of people in different ways. I saw Nanzo in chat. I would like to have a conversation with him at some point, because this is the type of thing that affects him heavily when he's competing against these people, kind of on a one-on-one basis, almost like they're almost like head-to-heads when you're playing D1, and yeah, that's a lot different than someone like me who the only way I really compete against them is the trickle down, the cards that they win from D1 or I'm competing against. So, I think that my perspective, of course, is going to be a lot different than someone that has to, compete against these people every week and probably, get beat by them a lot based on different things that they're doing or optimizing and whatever. But
not this past game week. Sorry, I had to. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Speaking of people I've offended, I'll probably offend those guys. But yeah, I think we weren't going to come here and just try to blast everybody. I think what we wanted to do was at least because mostly we weren't looking at it that way. And we were talking last night when we finally decided to talk about this topic, and then we were talking about it beforehand. It was like, okay, we do kind of see we're looking at this similarly. And I think it was a way that a lot of people were not looking at it. And thank you to everybody in chat that kind of helped us get through that, because as much as we talked about it last night, I finished the conversation. I was like, I don't know, I was going to take notes for this and I wanted all these things to say, and I didn't really know what I wanted to say. So I definitely appreciate everybody who joined us live on this to help us get through all of that, especially with your comments and potential solutions to what's going on. So thank you for that. I would hit the like button for you guys if I could, but I can't. So if you want to just hit it on our video, that would be very appreciative. Also feel free to subscribe. If you're listening to the audio version, if you could please rate and review it wherever you listen to that. I did hear that some positive stuff about people watching on Spotify. So Thank you for those who are checking it out there. But if you also want to go over to YouTube and just like it, that'd be cool too. So I will be back on Friday with Sean for our strategy show. Sean will be back. Andy and I will be back next week with hopefully a completely different topic, because I would love for this just to be the last that we have to talk about it publicly. But everybody, I will say one last thing, that the Game Week 250, like the special weekly events that are coming up are really cool. Check those out. You can use Sorare Dad. I did a video that you can find on YouTube all about how you can get your presets set up for each special weekly in terms of the cards that you can use and all of the scoring parameters. So check that out.
At some point, what do you think you guys will build those scoring parameters into the lineup builder for special weekly?
Oh, wow. That's a big ask right in the
I
middle.
don't know why I ask you stuff like this, because it's like dev work for somebody else.
It's totally what it's not me.
Get right on that.
Yeah, I just have to decide whether I want to actually tell them. But now it's like it's all out here. Thanks.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Yeah.
Anyway,
I'm gonna keep making my personal requests on stream. Way, this totally makes it more likely to happen, right?
We'll find out. So yeah, thank you everybody for joining us. And Andy, I'll talk to you next week.
Sounds good.